What if I told you that the most powerful man in the world began each day before sunrise, not with soldiers or servants, but with silence? While Rome slept, Marcus Aurelius was already awake, battling the one enemy no army could ever defeat: his own mind. He didn't chase comfort or fame or fortune. He sought control over his thoughts, his emotions, his reactions. Every morning at 5 a.m., he faced the same challenge we all face. Will I rule my mind, or will my mind rule me? These are the 10 powerful habits Marcus Aurelius practiced to build mental toughness, the timeless rituals that turned a man into a legend. And he wasn't alone. As Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." Mental courage creates inner freedom, and that's what these habits were designed to build. So if you've ever longed for unshakable focus, calm in chaos, and mastery over yourself, this is where it begins. Habit 1, early reflection. Before the empire stirred, before the first light touched the marble of Rome, a single candle burned. Marcus Aurelius sat in silence, quill in hand, eyes heavy with thought. The most powerful man in the world was not giving orders, not commanding armies, not receiving praise. He was writing to himself. Each morning around 5 o'clock, Marcus began his day not with meetings or proclamations, but with reflection. He opened his journal, what we now know as meditations, and faced the battlefield of his own mind. When you arise in the morning, he wrote, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. These were not words for others. They were reminders for himself. Because Marcus understood, before you can command an empire, you must first command your thoughts. Now pause, breathe. Say it with me, face your thoughts before they face you. Because if you don't write your mind in the morning, your mind will write you. Modern science now proves what the Stoics already knew. Journaling for just 10 minutes a day reduces anxiety by 27% and boosts focus by over 40%. Marcus didn't have data, he had discipline. He realized that when you confront your inner noise before the world awakens, you reclaim peace. Imagine it. The city of Rome still sleeps. The empire waits. There are wars to fight, diseases to contain, politicians to tame, and yet Marcus sits alone writing lines that no one will read for almost 2,000 years. Because he wasn't writing for the world, he was writing to withstand the world. You have power over your mind, he reminded himself, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. These weren't the words of a ruler, they were the reflections of a warrior fighting within. Reflection at 5 a.m. is not about routine. It's about resistance. Resistance against the chaos waiting to consume your focus the moment you wake up. Against the flood of thoughts that crash in as soon as you open your phone, your email, your news feed. Marcus' first act each day was to observe himself. What am I feeling? What am I fearing? What am I avoiding? Because only what is seen can be tamed. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Marcus took that literally. His pen was his sword-cutting illusion from truth, reminding himself that peace doesn't come from the absence of problems, but from presence of mind. So let's make this practical. Tomorrow morning before the world wakes, try this. Write 3 lines. First, what are you grateful for? Second, what do you fear today? And third, what will you choose to focus on no matter what happens? That's it. Just 3 lines. You'll notice something powerful. The noise quiets down. You begin to separate what matters from what doesn't. That's not coincidence, that's discipline. The Stoics didn't meditate to escape life. They reflected to engage life with clarity. Today, psychologists call it cognitive unloading. CEOs, athletes, soldiers, many follow this same ritual. A 2021 Harvard Business Review study found that leaders who journal daily are 32% more resilient under stress. Why? Because reflection turns chaos into order, emotion into awareness, reaction into response. It's the difference between living in autopilot and living awake. Marcus didn't control an empire because of his armies. He controlled it because he controlled himself. Each morning his journal wasn't paper, it was a mirror that reflected not the emperor but the man, a reminder that power fades, wealth changes, but self-mastery endures. So when your alarm rings tomorrow at 5 a.m., don't grab your phone, grab your thoughts. Light your own candle, write your own truth. Face your thoughts before they face you. Because like Marcus Aurelius wrote, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Every morning is a battle between the mind and the moment, and those who win it down the day. Take a breath. Let that sink in. Because in the next lesson, Marcus will teach us how to turn discomfort into discipline, the cold morning ritual that forged his unbreakable will. Stay with me. Habit 2, cold discipline. The cold cuts deeper than steel. That's what Marcus Aurelius understood long before science confirmed it. Each morning after reflection and writing, the Emperor of Rome stepped into the chill. Not to punish himself, but to remind his body who was in control. When you live in a palace surrounded by gold and comfort, it's easy to forget the value of pain. But Marcus refused to be owned by luxury. He believed that comfort weakens the mind and hardship sharpens it. He once wrote, "It's not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." And to truly live, he knew he had to embrace discomfort. Say it with me. Discomfort is the doorway to discipline. Imagine the scene. It's dawn in the emperor's chamber. The air is sharp. The marble floors are ice beneath his feet. Servants wait with warm water, but Marcus waves them away. He pours cold water into a basin and without hesitation washes his face. The shock hits like lightning. His breath catches. His mind screams, "Stop," but he doesn't. He breathes through it, slowly, deeply. And that's when the calm comes. Not from avoiding the cold, but from entering it with control. Thousands of years later, we now know why. Cold exposure increases norepinephrine by up to 530%, sharpening focus and mood. It boosts resilience, trains the nervous system, and lowers inflammation. Modern Stoics call it hormetic stress, the idea that controlled hardship makes you stronger. Marcus didn't need to know the science. He felt it. He understood that the body, when tested, awakens the mind. Every day we seek warmth, physical, emotional, social. We scroll to avoid silence, eat to avoid hunger, stay busy to avoid thought. But the Stoic path is the opposite. It says, go where your comfort ends. That's where strength begins. Epictetus, born a slave before becoming a philosopher, wrote, "Difficulties show what men are." Therefore, when a difficult situation arises, remember God has given you a chance to show your virtue. Marcus lived by that. He didn't pray for an easy life. He prayed for the strength to meet life as it came. Now picture this. You step into a cold shower, your heart races, your skin tightens, you want to jump out immediately, but then you stop, you breathe. You say to yourself, "I am stronger than my comfort." That's when discipline is born, not in the warmth of routine, but in the frost of resistance. In modern studies, Navy SEALs and elite athletes use cold exposure to train grit. Their brains adapt, the stress response shortens, emotional control rises, and recovery improves. Just 30 seconds of cold water daily can rewire the nervous system toward resilience. Now imagine Marcus Aurelius didn't have saunas or trainers. He had his will. Every moment of voluntary discomfort trained him for the involuntary pain of life, betrayal, illness, loss, war. He knew that strength built in the quiet hours of discomfort would carry him through the storms of the day. And that's the lesson for us. If you seek peace, don't hide from the struggle, master it. Let's make it practical. Tomorrow morning, finish your shower with 30 seconds of cold water. No music, no distractions, just you, your breath, and the cold. Feel your mind panic, then steady it. Feel your heart pound, then calm it. Remind yourself, I am not my comfort. I am my control. When you step out, you'll feel alive, alert, grounded. That's not magic. That's the reward of self-mastery. Marcus used the cold to awaken the warrior within, not against others, but against weakness itself. As he wrote in Meditations, if it is endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining. It's brutal honesty and perfect wisdom. Because every moment of resistance you conquer builds the fortress of your mind. And inside that fortress, fear cannot enter. So the next time you feel the chill, whether it's the cold water, the fear of failure, or the silence of solitude, don't run. Step into it. Because that's where the real battle begins. The Stoics called it the path of fire and frost. Discomfort is not the enemy, it's the teacher. And as Marcus knew, the obstacle is the way. Now take a deep breath. Feel that strength. Because in the next habit, face something colder than water, the reminder of death itself. Memento mori. Stay with me. Habit 3, meditation on mortality. The sun rises over Rome, but Marcus Aurelius does not rush. He stands by the window gazing at the light spilling across the city. Somewhere in that golden glow, he whispers to himself, Memento mori. Remember that you will die. To many those words sound dark, even morbid. But to Marcus they were not about death. They were about life. He used mortality as a mirror reflecting not fear, but focus. Because when you accept the fragility of everything you love, every breath, every sunrise, you stop wasting time. You start living. Say it with me. When you remember, death life becomes sharper. 2,000 years later, we hide from death. We treat it as taboo, a topic for later, never for now. But the Stoics faced it daily, not with despair, but with dignity. Marcus wrote, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. That single sentence can change how you live forever. Imagine if you carried that truth every day. Would you still argue over small things? Would you still scroll aimlessly, chasing distraction? Or would you finally do what truly matters? Speak kindly, forgive faster, live deliberately. Picture Marcus in the quiet of dawn. He has just finished writing in Meditations. Now he sits in stillness, eyes closed, breathing slow. He reminds himself one day this breath will be his last. And instead of fear, he feels gratitude. Because this moment, this single inhale is proof he's alive. Modern science agrees awareness of mortality heightens meaning. A 2019 University of Missouri study found that reflecting on death increases gratitude, empathy, and motivation to act with purpose. It's as if the brain wakes up when reminded of its limits. Marcus didn't have neuroscience, he had wisdom. He knew that when you accept the end, you can finally begin. Here's the paradox of life. Only when we remember that time is short do we truly feel it passing. And that's the gift of memento mori. It's not meant to make you sad, it's meant to make you urgent. Seneca wrote, it's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Marcus took that to heart. Every decision, every act was measured against the clock of mortality. He knew that death was not the enemy, distraction was. Imagine if we lived like that. What if every goodbye was treated as sacred? What if every morning you woke up knowing this could be your last sunrise? How different would your priorities be? How many people would you forgive today? Let's make this practical. Tomorrow morning, before checking your phone, whisper these 3 words, memento mori. Then ask yourself, if this were my last day, how would I spend it? Who would I love more deeply? What would I finally stop delaying? Write down one action, just one that aligns with that answer. Do it today, because remembering death is not about preparing to die. It's about remembering to live. Marcus once lost 8 of his 13 children. He buried friends, soldiers, and loved ones, yet he never turned bitter. He saw mortality as a teacher. He wrote, don't act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live while it is in your power, be good. That's not pessimism. That's freedom. When nothing is guaranteed, every moment becomes sacred. You see, the Stoics didn't meditate on death to escape life. They did it to love life more fiercely, to see clearly what is fleeting and therefore precious. Marcus's strength didn't come from denying death. It came from walking beside it every day as a friend, not a fear. So remember this. When you look in the mirror, see not someone who will live forever, but someone who can choose how to live today. And in that choice lies all your power. Memento mori isn't a warning. It's a wake-up call, a reminder that the hourglass is running and that every grain of sand matters. Take a deep breath. You're still here, and that means it's not too late. Because in the next habit, Marcus will teach us how to let go of something even harder than life itself, the ego. Stay with me. Habit 4, detachment from ego. The palace of Rome was filled with marble, gold, and power, yet Marcus Aurelius saw none of it as his. Every morning before the world bowed to him, he whispered to himself, I am just a man, not a god, not a legend, just a man made of the same dust as everyone else. To rule millions and still remind yourself that you are small, that is true strength. Marcus wrote, soon you will have forgotten all things, and all things will have forgotten you. That wasn't despair. It was discipline, a deliberate act of shrinking his ego before the world could inflate it. Say it with me. Greatness begins with humility. Imagine waking up every day as the Emperor of Rome, armies at your command, senators at your feet, history waiting to remember your name. Most men would drown in that kind of power. But Marcus began his mornings by cutting through illusion. He reminded himself that titles fade, applause ends, and even emperors return to dust. Epictetus, the slave-turned-philosopher, once said, "You are not what happens to you, but how you respond to it." Marcus lived by that. He refused to let his status define him. He didn't see himself above others, he saw himself as one of them. In Meditations, Marcus wrote Alexander the Great and his mule driver both died, and the same thing happened to both. He used mortality as a mirror to keep his pride in check. The ego whispers, "You are special." Wisdom replies, "You are temporary." That is not self-hatred, it's self-honesty. And honesty is where peace begins. Modern psychology agrees. Studies from the University of Michigan show that humility correlates with higher emotional intelligence, stronger leadership, and better resilience under pressure. When you admit you don't know everything, your mind stays open to learn anything. Marcus didn't rule by arrogance, he ruled by awareness. He knew that the moment you believe you are above others, you stop growing. And when growth stops, decay begins. Picture this. After a long day of war councils, speeches, and ceremonies, Marcus returns to his tent. He removes his armor, sets down his crown, and opens his journal. The words he writes are not royal decrees, they're reminders to stay human. He writes, "When someone does you wrong, immediately consider what they think is good and evil. Once you understand that, you will pity them, not hate them." This is humility in action, the ability to see through another's eyes even when you have every right not to. He understood that the true enemy of wisdom isn't ignorance, it's arrogance. Because arrogance blinds you to truth, and humility clears the lens. Now think about your own life. Where does ego whisper to you? When do you crave recognition instead of purpose? When do you choose pride over peace? Ego says, "I need to be seen." Discipline says, "I need to serve." Ego shouts. Humility listens. Marcus's power came not from authority, but from detachment. He could lead because he was owned by his image. He could command because he first commanded himself. Let's make this practical. Today, try this exercise. At the end of your day, write down one moment where your ego showed up. Maybe you wanted credit. Maybe you snapped when corrected. Maybe you felt invisible. Then write one line. Marcus would write, "I am just a man learning, failing, trying." Do it every day for a week. You'll start to notice something incredible. The world feels lighter when your ego does not have to carry it. Seneca wrote, "No man is crushed by misfortune unless he has first been deceived by prosperity." The Stoics knew that pride builds walls around the heart, and humility breaks them down. Marcus' greatness wasn't his throne. It was his willingness to kneel before truth. So when life praises you, remember the emperor who said, "I am just a man." And when life humbles you, remember that he embraced that too. Because the path to mastery isn't about rising above others, it's about sinking deeper into honesty. Greatness begins with humility, and humility begins when you remember who you are beneath the armor. Take a breath. Let the crown fall. Feel the weight leave your shoulders. Because in the next habit, Marcus will face something even more difficult than pride, the fire of emotion itself. The lesson: control the first reaction or it will control you. Stay with me. Habit 5, controlling the first reaction. The battlefield isn't always made of swords and shields. Sometimes it's made of words, glances, and sudden emotions. And the greatest warriors are not those who strike first, but those who pause before they do. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. He ruled not only armies but tempests, the tempests of anger, fear, and pride within himself. He wrote, "You will meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, and unsocial. But they cannot harm you unless you choose to be harmed." In other words, the world will provoke you, but only you decide whether to react or respond. Say it with me. A Stoic pauses before emotion rules. Imagine a messenger rushing into the emperor's chamber, voice shaking, "Caesar, the legions have betrayed you." The senators whisper. The air thickens with panic. But Marcus doesn't explode. He doesn't shout, doesn't command. He closes his eyes, inhales slowly, and waits just a heartbeat longer than his impulse demands. That tiny pause is the difference between chaos and control. He once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." Marcus knew that the first reaction is always emotional, and emotion left unchecked can enslave the mind faster than any conqueror. Modern neuroscience agrees. The amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system, activates in milliseconds. But if you breathe just for 5 seconds, the prefrontal cortex regains control. That's why Marcus practiced what we now call the Stoic pause. It's not weakness, it's mastery. Because the strongest man isn't the one who wins every battle, it's the one who doesn't start unnecessary ones. Marcus lived in a world where insults could spark duels and anger could start wars. Yet he chose calm. He wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." And that's the heart of Stoic strength, not in the strike, but in the stillness. Think of the last time you reacted, instantly said something. Sharp sent a message you regretted, lost your calm. That first reaction cost you clarity. Now imagine if in that moment you had paused, if you had breathed, if you had simply asked, "Is this under my control?" 9 times out of 10, it isn't. And that realization frees you. There's an ancient saying, "He who angers you, conquers you." Marcus refused to be conquered by emotion. He treated irritation as an invitation, a signal to practice patience. When insulted, he didn't react, he reflected. When accused unjustly, he didn't defend, he observed. He knew the first feeling is instinct, but the second is choice. And that choice defines your character. Let's make this practical. Next time something irritates you, someone cuts you off in traffic, interrupts you, disrespects you, do this. Stop. Breathe for 5 seconds. Ask, will this matter tomorrow? Then choose your response, not your reaction. Try it once a day for a week. You'll begin to notice the power of the pause. Your mind will sharpen. Your relationships will improve. And most importantly, you'll start to feel free from the prison of immediate emotion. Modern studies prove it. According to Harvard neuroscientist Dr. Jill Taylor, it takes exactly 90 seconds for the body to process an emotion chemically. If you can stay calm for that window, the emotion passes. The Stoicism made biological. Marcus didn't need a lab. He had awareness. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." It's one of his most famous lines because it's the foundation of mental toughness. Every day, life will test your calm. Someone will disappoint you. Something will go wrong. The Stoic doesn't escape emotion, he observes it, lets it pass, and acts only when reason returns. Because reacting is reflex. Responding is strength. Marcus chose to be the master of his emotions, not their servant. So the next time anger rises, remember the emperor who ruled the world, yet ruled himself first. Take a breath, wait, let reason arrive before reaction. Because that pause, that single heartbeat can change your entire day. And that, my friend, is the power of stillness. In the next habit, Marcus teaches us that strength is not isolation, but service, that to lead is to serve. Let's continue. Habit 6, serving others at dawn. When Rome still slept, Marcus Aurelius wasn't thinking about conquest. He was thinking about people. Letters from the provinces lay on his desk, reports from generals, pleas from citizens, and notes from his closest advisors. He read each one with calm focus, his candle flickering against scrolls filled with worry and hope. Marcus didn't see himself as a ruler to be served, but as a servant of reason, justice, and duty. He once wrote, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings no benefit to the bee." For him, leadership was service, and service was strength. Say it with me. Strength isn't isolation, it's contribution. Imagine being emperor, the most powerful man alive, and still beginning your morning reading letters from soldiers and farmers. Marcus didn't hide behind walls. He didn't crave worship. He wanted understanding. He believed that to lead was to listen, and to serve was to sustain the whole. He reminded himself daily, men exist for the sake of one another. Teach them or bear with them. That sentence could build empires and heal modern hearts. Because in a world obsessed with self, Marcus looked outward. He measured greatness not by how much he owned, but by how much he gave. The Stoics saw service as the highest form of strength. Seneca said, "No one can live happily who has regard to himself alone." You must live for your neighbor if you would live for yourself. Marcus lived this truth. Every morning after meditation, he prepared not for battle, but for counseled decisions that would affect millions. He asked himself, what can I give today that outlives me? That's the question of a true leader. Not what can I gain, but what can I contribute? Modern science echoes his wisdom. Psychologists call it the helper's high. Acts of service trigger dopamine and oxytocin, the same chemicals linked to joy, trust, and resilience. Studies show that people who volunteer or serve regularly live longer and experience 40% less depression. Marcus didn't need the data, he lived the results. He wrote, "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. While you live while it is in your power, be good." Picture this: Rome is in crisis. The plague spreads. Citizens panic. Many flee to the countryside. But Marcus stays in the city, walking among the sick, meeting the frightened, comforting soldiers. He could have hidden in his palace, but he chose presence over privilege. Because real strength isn't about standing above others, it's about standing with them. That's the Stoic way. To serve even when unseen. To lead even when afraid. To give even when it costs you something. Strength isn't isolation, it's contribution. When you serve others, you forget your pain for a moment and remember your purpose. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What can I do?" That shift changes everything, because service transforms suffering into meaning. Let's make it practical. Today, do one thing that helps someone else. No reward, no recognition. Send a message of encouragement. Listen without interrupting. Help a colleague quietly. Hold space for someone's pain. Small acts, big ripple. Marcus didn't seek fame for his kindness. He saw kindness as duty. He once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That's Stoicism in its purest form, not thinking good, but doing good. Now imagine this: you wake up tomorrow. Before checking your phone, you ask, "Who can I serve today?" Your life starts to change. Your energy rises, because the mind that serves stops suffering itself. Marcus ruled the greatest empire on earth, but he ruled with empathy. He knew that legacy is not carved in stone, it's carved in hearts. And when we lift others, we lift ourselves. So as you go through your day, remember this: the strongest tree is not the one standing alone in the field. It's the one rooted deep, connected to the forest around it. True strength is connection, and true greatness is service. In the next habit, Marcus shows us that the mind cannot be strong if the body is weak, the discipline of physical readiness. Stay with me. Habit 7, physical readiness. The world remembers Marcus Aurelius as a philosopher, but he was also a warrior, not just of ideas, but of endurance. Before the empire awoke, while mist still clung to the hills of Rome, Marcus trained his body quietly, deliberately, with discipline. He believed that philosophy must live in the flesh, not only in thought. He wrote, "When the soul takes care of itself, it must also take care of the body, for the body is its instrument." Marcus knew that strength of mind requires strength of form. Because how can you command your thoughts if you cannot command your limbs? Say it with me. The mind cannot be strong if the body is weak. Imagine the emperor at dawn, not in robes, but in training gear. The sound of his sandals on stone, the clatter of a wooden sword. He practices slow movements, breath-steady muscles, tense. He's not training for glory, he's training for clarity. Because movement is meditation in motion. Every swing, every breath, every repetition, a lesson in focus. When his body resisted, he smiled. Pain was not punishment, it was partnership. He treated fatigue as feedback, proof that his will still ruled. Modern research agrees physical movement reshapes the brain. Exercise increases neuroplasticity, reduces anxiety by 40%, and strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the very region Stoics called the ruling mind. Marcus didn't have neuroscience, he had self-awareness. He discovered that when you master your body, you unlock your mind. The Stoics saw physical hardship as moral training. Seneca said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Marcus lived that truth. He led campaigns against the Germanic tribes in freezing conditions, sleeping in tents, eating rations, enduring the same hardships as his soldiers. He refused luxury while his men suffered. That's why they followed him, not because he commanded, but because he embodied resilience. Even in war, he found philosophy. When his legs trembled, he reminded himself the body may tire, but the mind decides when it quits. And that decision to endure became the seed of greatness. Think about your own life. When your alarm rings, do you rise or roll over? When your body resists, do you give in or go forward? Discipline begins in the flesh because comfort is the first enemy of the will. The Stoics trained not to look strong, but to be strong, steady under pressure, calm under chaos, alive under fatigue. Motion builds mastery. Modern data confirms it. According to a 2022 Stanford study, just 20 minutes of moderate exercise daily increases willpower and emotional stability. Your heartbeat, your breath, your muscles, they're all part of the same system that governs focus and resilience. That's why Marcus moved every morning to align body and mind before facing the empire's storms. He didn't chase perfection. He trained for preparedness. Because in Stoicism, fitness isn't vanity, it's virtue. It's the body's expression of self-discipline. Let's make this practical. Tomorrow morning before checking your phone, move for 10 minutes. Stretch, walk, push-ups, deep breathing. Don't chase numbers, chase consistency. The Stoics believed repetition builds resilience. Do it every day for a week, and you'll notice your mind wakes before the world does. And when discomfort comes, sweat, pain, fatigue, whisper what Marcus whispered. If it is endurable, then endure it. Marcus never saw exercise as separate from virtue. He believed movement kept the soul awake. He once wrote, "A man should stand upright, not be kept upright." That means true strength isn't built in gyms, but in the quiet choices we make when no one is watching. To move, to rise, to continue. So when you move your body, don't think of fitness, think of freedom. The freedom to act, to endure, to lead yourself first. Because no man can conquer the world if he cannot conquer his own inertia. The mind cannot be strong if the body is weak, and the body cannot be strong if the mind has surrendered. Together they form the discipline that defines greatness. So tomorrow move not for appearance, but for alignment. Train your body as your mind's ally. Because as Marcus knew, every rep, every breath, every step is philosophy in motion. In the next habit, Marcus reminds us that even power must be grounded through gratitude. Stay with me. Habit 8, journaling for gratitude. Gratitude grounds power. Before Marcus Aurelius faced the empire, he faced his thoughts, not just his fears, but his blessings. Each morning before writing his reflections on discipline or mortality, he began with gratitude. He wrote not to boast, but to remember that even as an emperor, he was still a guest in the house of life. He knew that gratitude wasn't softness, it was strength. Because only the man who recognizes what he has can stand unshaken when everything else is taken away. Say it with me. Gratitude grounds power. Imagine the scene. The Emperor of Rome sits alone, the early light spilling across his desk. Around him, silence. In front of him, his journal, a sanctuary of ink and honesty. He begins each page with small acknowledgments. Thank you for the breath I still hold. Thank you for those who serve beside me. Thank you for another sunrise. To Marcus, these were not just words. They were anchors, reminders that power means nothing if it isn't rooted in humility. He wrote, "Do not indulge in dreams of having what you do not have. Instead, think of the blessings you possess and how you would crave them if they were not yours." That was his antidote to greed, comparison, and despair. Marcus understood something most of us forget. Gratitude is not the result of happiness, it is the source of it. He trained his mind to focus on what remained, not what was missing. Because when gratitude becomes a habit, peace becomes your nature. Modern neuroscience proves this ancient wisdom. Studies from UC Berkeley show that daily gratitude journaling increases dopamine and serotonin, the same chemicals that create long-term happiness. Even writing just 3 things you're thankful for daily rewires your brain toward optimism and calm. Marcus didn't have science. He had stillness, and stillness taught him the same truth. Gratitude is the foundation of resilience. Picture this: Rome is collapsing under plague, the streets are empty, the people are afraid, and still Marcus writes in his journal, not about loss, but about grace. Grateful for the chance to lead through darkness. Grateful for those who remain. Grateful that I can still choose virtue. Gratitude didn't blind him to pain, it gave him courage to face it. Because when you count your blessings, fear loses its count. The Stoics knew that gratitude was not weakness, but wisdom. Epictetus wrote, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." Gratitude turns scarcity into sufficiency, and sufficiency into strength. Marcus used gratitude as armor, a shield against the endless demands of power. Where others saw burden, he saw opportunity. Where others cursed fate, he whispered thanks. Because gratitude doesn't change what you have, it changes how you see what you have. Let's make this practical. Tomorrow morning, take 5 minutes before the world wakes. Open a notebook or your phone and write 3 things you're grateful for. It can be small, a cup of water, a voice message from a friend, the sunrise through your window. Then write one challenge and next to it, one thing that challenge is teaching you. This is how Marcus practiced gratitude not as escape, but as engagement. He didn't say life is easy. He said life is precious even when it hurts. And that perspective changed everything. Gratitude grounds power because gratitude makes the strong gentle and the gentle unbreakable. It doesn't mean ignoring pain, it means transforming it. When you write down what you're thankful for, you teach your brain to focus on abundance, not lack. And when your mind sees abundance, fear has nowhere to live. Marcus wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." He trained those thoughts through gratitude line by line, day by day, not because he needed comfort, but because he needed clarity. Gratitude reminded him of what truly mattered and what never did. So when you wake tomorrow, before you scroll, before you speak, take a moment. Think of one thing, just one that you would miss if it disappeared. Hold that thought. That's gratitude. That's strength. Because power without gratitude becomes arrogance. But gratitude turns power into purpose. In the next habit, Marcus turns his attention to those who came before him, the teachers who shaped his mind. He reminds us wisdom multiplies when we share it. Habit 9, reading ancient wisdom. Before dawn, as the city still slept, Marcus Aurelius opened not his scrolls of law or empire, but philosophy. He turned the worn pages of Epictetus, the freed slave who taught emperors how to rule their minds before they ruled the world. He studied Seneca's letters, each one a mirror, reflecting his own fears and hopes. And through those words, he built a fortress, not of stone, but of understanding. Marcus knew that wisdom doesn't begin with us. It flows through us from the thinkers, poets, and warriors who lived before. He wrote, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind. Your soul takes on the color of your thoughts." And every morning he chose to color his mind with wisdom. Say it with me, borrow the wisdom of those who came before. Picture it. The emperor sits under the dim flame of a lamp, reading the words of men who died centuries before him. In their ideas, he finds companionship voices that cut through time, reminding him that struggle, fear, and doubt are not new. They are ancient, shared, universal. He didn't read to appear wise, he read to become calm. Because knowledge to a Stoic isn't power, it's peace. And peace comes not from knowing everything, but from remembering what truly matters. Marcus read to sharpen his perspective. He saw philosophy not as theory, but as training mental exercise for the soul. Where most rulers filled their mornings with reports of war and wealth, Marcus filled his with reason and reflection, because he knew a leader who stops learning, stops leading. He once wrote, "If someone can show me a mistaken, I will gladly change, for I seek the truth which never harmed anyone." That's humility and courage. Even as emperor, he bowed to wisdom greater than his own. Modern neuroscience echoes this. Consistent reading rewires the brain's empathy networks. A 2013 Harvard study showed that reading even 10 minutes of reflective text daily increases compassion and stress resilience. Marcus practiced this 4,800 years ago, proving that true wisdom is timeless. He didn't chase new information, he revisited eternal truths. The Stoics called it anamnesis, remembering what the soul already knows. We don't need more noise. We need to remember what's real. Imagine his mornings, the world outside in chaos. Wars, politics, disease, yet inside there is order. Scrolls spread before him, Heraclitus, Cleanthes, Epictetus. Each page a weapon against ignorance. Each quote a torch against confusion. He wasn't escaping reality. He was preparing for it. Because that's what wisdom does. It doesn't take you away from the storm. It teaches you how to stand inside it. Let's make it practical. You don't need ancient scrolls, just 10 quiet minutes each day. Choose one piece of wisdom to read. It could be Stoicism, Buddhism, or even a single quote. Then ask yourself 3 questions. What truth is this trying to teach me? How can I apply it today? What would Marcus do if he read this right now? Write the answer down. Repeat it tomorrow. Because reading without reflection is like eating without digestion. The lesson never nourishes you. Seneca once said, "We learn not for school, but for life." Marcus embodied that. He didn't just collect quotes, he lived them. Every principle, every paragraph, every word tested in the battlefield of his daily choices. When anger rose, he remembered Epictetus. It's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters. When fatigue came, he recalled Seneca. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. And when pride tempted him, he whispered to himself, I am just a man. That's the power of borrowed wisdom. It becomes your inner voice. So when you wake tomorrow, feed your mind before your body. Let ancient words become your armor. Because every idea you read becomes a choice you can make, every sentence a step toward self-mastery. Marcus didn't leave us temples or towers. He left us thoughts, and through them, a map to peace. Remember this, you are not alone in your struggle. Every great soul who ever lived has left you tools, lessons, and light. All you have to do is pick them up. Read not to escape life, but to embrace it. Because wisdom is not the past, it's the compass of the present. In the final habit, Marcus closes his day the way he began it, with reflection, honesty, and calm. Habit 10, evening reflection. The day ends where it began, in silence. The city of Rome dims, and the emperor retreats to his study. The scrolls are closed, the armor set aside. Now only one task remains: to face himself. Marcus Aurelius ends each day with the same ritual reflection. Not to judge, but to understand. He sits by the flickering light, opens his journal once more, and writes not of conquest or command, but of character. He asks, what did I do well today? Where did I fall short? What can I learn before the next dawn? Because for Marcus, self-examination wasn't punishment, it was purification. The Stoics called this practice prososche, the art of attention, a daily accounting of the soul. Say it with me. Growth begins with honest self-audit. Imagine the emperor, tired shoulders, heavy eyes, weary, yet still writing. Outside, Rome hums with the noise of taverns and triumphs. But inside, there's only quiet. He writes, today I lost my temper with a general. Tomorrow I will listen longer. Today I acted out of pride. Tomorrow I will remember humility. Each line is a lesson carved into his consciousness. He doesn't seek perfection, he seeks progress. Because Marcus knew that the man who hides from his own flaws will never master his mind, and the man who faces them daily will never be ruled by them. The Stoics believed that reflection was the mirror of virtue. Seneca advised every night before going to sleep, we must ask ourselves, what infirmity have I mastered today? What passion resisted? What temptation overcome? That's how the wise sharpen their souls, not once a lifetime, but every evening. Marcus followed this faithfully. For him, nighttime wasn't escape, it was review. The day was the exam. Reflection was the grade. Modern psychology echoes this ancient ritual. Studies show that journaling for just 10 minutes before bed reduces anxiety, improves sleep, and enhances emotional regulation by 27%. Because writing slows thought, and when thought slows, clarity rises. Marcus discovered this truth long before science. He didn't end his day with distraction, he ended it with direction. Now pause and ask yourself, how often do you look back without blaming or shaming, just observing? Because reflection without ego creates awareness, and awareness creates transformation. When you reflect, you reclaim your power. You stop being a passenger in your day, you become its author. You stop reacting, you start refining. Marcus treated each day as a lifetime. Morning was birth, midday was struggle, evening understanding. And through that rhythm, he achieved something few ever do: mastery of self. Let's make this practical. Tonight, before you sleep, write 3 questions. What did I do well today? What could I have done better? What lesson will I carry into tomorrow? Don't write to be perfect, write to be aware. You'll find that self-honesty is not harshness, it's healing. As Marcus wrote, look well into yourself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if you will always look. That's the fountain of resilience. Reflection. He didn't have therapists or life coaches, he had courage. Courage to confront the hardest truth himself. He knew that wisdom isn't gained in daylight. It's forged in darkness, when the world is quiet and only your conscience speaks. In those quiet moments, Marcus turned his flaws into teachers and his regrets into reminders. He didn't hide from failure, he harvested it. Because the Stoic doesn't fear mistakes, he studies them. And when the ink dries, Marcus closes his journal. He exhales. He has faced his mind, made peace with his actions, and forgiven himself for being human. Tomorrow he will rise again, renewed, ready, resolute. The mind, the body, the soul aligned once more. Growth begins with honest self-audit, and self-audit begins with courage, the courage to see yourself clearly, to know that each day is both a test and a teacher. So tonight before you sleep, do what Marcus did. Meet yourself on the page. Ask, learn, forgive, and prepare. Because when you end your day in reflection, you begin your life in wisdom. And that is how the most powerful man in the world ruled not just an empire, but himself. Final whisper: control your mind and you control your world. Marcus wrote, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. If this message touched something in you, don't just nod. Don't just watch. Live it. Because the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius wasn't meant to be admired, it was meant to be applied. Every sunrise, every decision, every breath is a chance to practice what the Stoics taught: calm in chaos, strength in struggle, peace in progress. So if you're ready to build a mind that bends but never breaks, if you're ready to walk the Stoic path with focus, courage, and discipline, then hit subscribe now to Making Life Better. This channel is about motivation that fades, it's about transformation that lasts. Together, we'll master the same timeless habits that shaped emperors, warriors, and thinkers for centuries. And before you go, I want to know if you could describe the mindset of Marcus Aurelius in just one word, what would it be? Comment Stoic if you're ready to master yourself before you master the world.